Hello everyone. In this video we're gonna put it all back together. As you can see, the parts were sandblasted and powder coated. These parts were zinc plated and I think it's gonna look awesome, black with gold. And also I have a new parking brake shoes and of course new bearings. The bearings you're gonna need, the big one is symbol 3816-2RS. It's this one. These two bearings are LM11910 and LM67010, and this set for the hub is Fabi 179219. And also we're gonna need some, of course, some grease, some thread locker. I will use some press adapters and old bearing races for pushing the new ones. Okay, so let's start with the trailing arm. First, I'm gonna install outer races of those bearings inside the trailing arm. Like I mentioned before, when I disassembled the old ones, the original ones, I just looked at the symbols on them and I ordered the new ones using those symbols. Of course, you can go to authorized dealership and order the originals. When I was doing the first trailing arm before, I tried to use those threaded rods to install the new bearings, but I find this method using the old race and some press adapter and just gently hammer in the new bearing, I think this method is better. When I was setting up those rods, it was very easy to set up a little askew, and the bearing was not going in properly. So I'm just doing it like this. I'm just putting in new bearing and I'm using the press adapter and a hammer, and I can always look how it's going in and hammer accordingly. Here the outer race sits nice and flush, and now the other side. And here's the other bearing on the other side. The good thing about this method is when you are hammering the new bearing using the old one, you can clearly hear the way it resonates, that the new bearing sits flush. Next thing, I'm gonna install this seal ring right here on the trailing arm. It meets with this ring right here. Another nice thing about having these press adapters, I'm gonna use this one and gently hammer it down right here on the trailing arm. The last thing we need to do with the trailing arm, the manual calls to put inside there about 50 grams of grease. I think it's more or less a thumb spool, should be fine. Maybe a little more. Actually, there is one more thing to do with the trailing arm after installing this. Of course, we need to install this piece right here. And I'm gonna use my professional measuring tool. Here I think I'm actually gonna use the threaded rod to install this piece. I just need to use my measuring tool and pay attention so this part doesn't spin. And here's what it looks like mounted. Next I'm gonna tackle this thing. First I'm gonna put the bearing inside here, then this goes here. Pay attention so you put it the right side. The parking brake cable should be going right here. And the last thing, I'm gonna put this ring right here. It goes like this. The bulbous part goes up, and if you are painting this part, you're gonna need to grind it down this lip here, so this ring goes in really tight. As I mentioned, putting on this ring is quite tricky. It goes really tight. What I'm trying to do is I'm squeezing it from one side with the vice grips, and the other side is in the vice, and I will try to squeeze the other side with the vice. Next thing, I'm gonna install this circlips, securing this bearing right here. The big one goes first. Next, this cover, and then a small one. I also tried ordering the ordinary circlip with loops instead of this one, but unfortunately the loops are just getting in the way of the cover, so it's impossible to use the ordinary circlips. You have to use the original ones. Okay, we have this bearing covered. This is done. Next, we flip it over, and we need to install the dust cover using two M6 screws right here. We've got the dust cover on. Next we're gonna put on this plate right here. Don't forget to put on this rubber grommet right here where the parking brake cable goes. Then it goes here, and now we're gonna install this parking brake bracket, and let me show you. This is the original screw, and as you can see, the head of the screw is quite shallow. And what I did, because as maybe you remember, I destroyed this screw and it was really a pain. I bought normal screws with a taller head to put it right here, but turns out if the head of the screw is too high, the parking brake shoes don't sit properly, so these screws unfortunately has to have a low profile. So what I did, I bought a new screws and I had to grind them down a little bit. Now when we have this bracket, we should be installing the hub, and I'm gonna install the outer races right here. But before I install the hub, I'm gonna install the parking brake shoes. When I was doing the other side, I installed the hub first, and then it was really difficult to install the parking brake shoes, you know, working in this tight space right here. So now I'm gonna try to do it the other way. Also pay attention, there is a left and right stamped on the hubs, so make sure you're installing it on the right side. So first, the outer races. Now, like I said, before I put in the hub, I'm gonna install the parking brake cable and shoes. Now, before I put the hub in, I need to install this seal ring right here, and one of the bearing races is perfect for doing this. Also, we need to put some grease inside, like in the trailing arm. Again, manual calls for about 50 grams. So next it's time to put the hub on. Like this. Don't forget to put this pressure ring when we're gonna tighten the nut. This ring is gonna flatten. As you can see, it's quite thick, so we're gonna need to use some force. So here goes the ring, then goes the other bearing. Don't forget to pack it with grease. Next goes the ring and a nut. I already put it on the socket, so it sits nice and tight. next, what I want to do, I am putting two wheel screws into the hub, because I want to put it in the vise, because we're gonna tighten the nut on the other side really well, and I want this whole thing to sit really tight in the vise. Now, as you can see, I have this thing secured in the vise. This parking brake cable, unfortunately, is a little annoying, but as I mentioned, it's a little lesser of two evils. Now we're gonna tighten this nut right here. As you can see, the hub is secured in the vise, and this whole thing, the hub is moving against this whole thing. And now manual calls to tighten this nut until this play right here is 0.03 to 0.06 millimeters. To measure this, we're gonna need this tool. Okay, I set up a dial indicator, and I tightened the nut by hand. And now when I move this whole thing, as you can see, we have about half millimeter of play. So now I'm gonna use a really long extension, about 1 meter, and I'm gonna tighten it, I don't know, about 1/4 or 1/8 of a turn. And I'm gonna check again. Now you need to take time, because the tightening ring inside that we put inside is one-time use. If you tighten it too much, then you need to start all over again. Also, manual calls for 3 to 4 millimeter of pre-tensioning on this tool. Now, still about 0.5 millimeter, so let's tighten it again. And as I said, make sure this socket sits really well on this nut, because you really don't want to break those 4 teeth. Still about 1/10 of a millimeter, and we are aiming at 0.05. As you can see, I really need to put some force to it. I'm moving the whole table when I'm tightening it. Okay, there is 0.05. Perfect. Now I need to take off this nut. The last thing is to put the sealing ring right here. I need to find some matching press adapter. need to pay attention to the lip of this seal ring. Let's put it inside. Okay, now it sits nice and flush. Last thing to do is to make 2 notches on this ring, here and here, to prevent the nut from going off. When you finish, there should be one more piece in the Fabi bearing set. It's this washer, and it's used when screwing the hub to the half axle. So you're taking this nut, the screw, and this tube, and going from this side, it goes right here, and it's screwing into the axle. Now we have the bearing all done. What's missing is this bearing over here on this spindle, and I'm gonna put it on right now. Now that we have completed the trailing arm and the hub part, it's time to marry those two together. Like this. And now here we're gonna put the last Timken bearing. And this funny shaped washer and this big nut. I've had to hammer down this bearing a little bit, and now I'm gonna tighten the nut, and the manual calls for 40 to 50 Newton meters. Actually, it's gonna be much easier if I put this last piece over here. Now that we have it installed, it's gonna be much easier to tighten this nut right here. Okay. The last thing to do is to put the dust cover on. Okay, now there we have it. Everything's done. We have a new bearings, new bearings here in the hub. Also, we have a new bearings here and here. It looks really nice. It was quite challenging, but I'm really glad how it turned out. Well, now I'm gonna put back together the brakes, and I'm gonna put it back in the car. Again, I hope you like it, and thanks for watching.